Before I kick off into this particular video, just an FYI, I have been struck down with the plague, or just a bit of a sore throat, so forgive me if my voice isn't quite on point as always, but we recently learned, of course, about No Man's Sky and when it's finally coming out, but as I pointed out in my video on that, we still don't know really much about No Man's Sky. We know that it has a huge hype train, but we don't know much about the game itself. And now I have some comments from Sean Murray of Hello Games, who are of course the developers of No Man's Sky. Now all of this was in a rather lengthy interview with PC Gamer, and I will link that in the description below this video. If you wish to read the whole thing, I suggest you do. I'm not going to discuss all of the interview here, of course, as it is rather lengthy, but I want to touch on a couple of things that I found particularly interesting. Now, one of the things you might have seen in one of the earlier No Man's Sky presentations was intelligent alien NPCs that you can trade and interact with. Now, basically, the more you encounter these aliens, the more words you learn in their language, and it becomes easier to interact with them. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. But other than that, we haven't really heard much about the NPCs and how they're going to work. And from what Sean is saying, they're not going to be your traditional quest-giving NPCs found in other games. I mean, I'm sure they'll still give you stuff to do, but maybe not in the traditional sense that we're used to. And he said, quote, "My mindset at the time was that I visualise NPCs in most games and they feel a little bit empty a lot of the time. They sit outside their shop day and night, it doesn't seem to matter. They don't seem to be aware of what's going on. You will come up to them and you'll be drenched in blood and they will just talk to you cheerily, you know? And they will tell you, go and collect my 3 chickens or whatever. And that, when you spread that out across the universe, it doesn't really make as much sense, you know? And you see the strings way more clearly. And what we've settled on, and what's taken us a long time to get to work well, and I feel it does, is something that I feel is true to the science fiction experience. Learning alien languages, trying to communicate with aliens you don't quite understand, and being able to trade with them, being able to gain new tech from them, that kind of thing. They don't say to you, I've lost my 3 space chickens, go and find them. They're on the 3 planets of this solar system. It would be so easy for us to do that, but it feels like such a wasted opportunity, and it feels like that's kind of something that other games do far better, that suits other games far more. And it's something that I have never personally super enjoyed or looked forward to. Now, another thing that I wanted to discuss that was in this interview is something regarding the exploration. Now, as we all know, No Man's Sky is pretty much a pure exploration experience, at least from what we've seen. You go out, you get on your ship, you explore different planets, you know, you go on the planets, you discover stuff, etc. Now, he was asked, if perhaps there's a place to call home that you can return to after a long trip and perhaps like build a base or, you know, something along those lines. And his response was rather interesting. And he says, quote, "We do find people in playtests just staying on a planet for far longer than I would have expected. And that's cool, I like that. Even in doing demos and stuff like that, which are quite short, you find people finding a hazardous planet and they just want to see how long they can survive on it. Or you find people being on a hazardous planet and they go on a really lush planet and they feel like, this is nice, I just want to hang out here, I want to chill, and that's good as well. They have their own way of playing games and their own particular play style, and then they find a planet that suits that better and gives them the experience that they want, and they'll settle on that for a bit, and they might stay a few hours there and they might decide to move on." However, it does very much seem, and this is of course out of quote now, that No Man's Sky is rather specifically built to push you and encourage you to find new places rather than spending too much time on a single planet and perhaps, you know, calling it your quote-unquote home. And he said, quote, "In terms of features, in terms of design, decision making and stuff, we always say, does this encourage exploration or does it not, basically? And we use that to cut out features, so things like base building. We don't have base building. And the reason is, it would just make people want to stay where they are and not explore. And we've built this whole huge universe, and that would be a shame. We want them to go out and explore. Or, for instance, each planet can contain loads of different biomes within it. We could have polar ice caps and all that kind of thing, but then it wouldn't want to make you go and visit other planets. So we don't have that, and that's really purposeful. And that's our kind of vision for the game. And after it comes out, and you're right, people will say, maybe rather, hey, I just want to settle down and go fishing. And you know, maybe we'll support that then if there's enough of those people. Right now, it's about pushing people far apart. It's about exploration. And I think that's cool. That's the vision that we have. And I think there's a huge canvas that can support lots of different ways of playing the game. And obviously he's discussing support there and post-release updates, but I do want to stress that at the moment at least they don't have any plans for DLC, but they did seem open to the idea of someday updating No Man's Sky with new features, mostly based on how Hello Games sees people playing their game. So for example, if his little anecdote there turns out to be true and there is someone that just wants like to spend all their time fishing or whatever on a certain planet, they might add in that in a future update if there's enough of those type of people. So there you have it. There are just a couple of the more interesting comments, at least in my mind, from the interview with PC Gamer. As I said, the link to the full interview is in the description below this video. If you found his comments interesting, I highly recommend you go and read it. There are a few things that I haven't touched on here, so I suggest you take a look-see and give it a read. It's definitely worth the time. So, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.